be friends.
All right, we continue this 4 o'clock hour. Thanks to Staff Sergeant Courtney Clary for the incentives, the U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company. And now in studio, after a long day it's been for him, after the commitment last night, former Tulsa star, Midway High School star, and Baylor defensive lineman, Jackson Player, the motor that never ends. How you doing, young man? Good to have you here.
I'm doing great. Thankful for y'all allowing me to be on the show.
What have the last couple of weeks been like since you announced the transfer portal? Was it what you thought? Was it like being recruited again out of high school? What kind of explain all that?
Well, I'll start off with how I started. I made a post on Twitter saying that stay tuned, 5th year on the way. And I called Coach Monty and told him I planned on staying another year, but I didn't plan on staying at staying at Tulsa. And he was kind of upset, but not really upset. He was more so like, dang, I want you to stay, but if your heart's not here, I understand. And my heart had left Tulsa. I spent my 4 years there, did what I needed to, so got in the portal that night, and at 7 a.m. I had more phone calls and more missed texts than I ever had, and I was like, I never told nobody I was in the portal. I don't know how that happened then. Coach Bell woke me up out of my sleep about 9 and was like, hey, we're going to get this thing on the road. And I was like, I guess so. I guess the world knows now. So after that, I ain't put my phone down the last 3 weeks.
So how different is it being recruited out of the portal in that, when you're getting recruited out of high school, people may want you, but you also have to prove it to them. And you were a little under-recruited because, they said you were too short to be a defensive tackle and all these different things. But now you've got tape of, like, this is me in college football doing what I do. How different does that make it?
It was a lot different. Coming out of high school, I think I had like 14, 15 offers. I had one Power 5, and that was at the end that I didn't even tell anybody about because it was 2 days before signing day, and I was committed to Tulsa. And I took that as, okay, get to Tulsa, and I'm going to show them what they missed out on. And now I consider it having the leverage. When I'm in the portal now as a 5th year, my tape speaks for itself. So now schools look at how can I help them instead of how can a school help me. More so to say, out of high school, you're like, oh, a school can pull your offer anytime. If you don't fit what they need, they can do that. But now schools want you. They're calling me, begging me, like, can you please come? So now it's more so, where did I fit and where did we match?
Jackson, we hear about the transfer portal, and a lot of times, like especially the older generation will complain, like, oh, this isn't the way it was or whatever. But I mean, I think you're like the prime example of why the transfer portal is a great thing because Oklahoma wasn't offering you out of high school. Baylor wasn't all in on you like they are right now. I mean, Arkansas, you ended up at Tulsa, but like now all these schools are calling you. I mean, is that a sign of just how beneficial the transfer portal can be, the opportunities that it can give you?
Oh, most definitely, especially for guys that see themselves playing on the bigger stage and all they have is those small schools. So they can take their time, go to those schools, put on the tape they need, and make it to that bigger stage. Should be no hard feelings. It's just like a small school coach getting that call from a big school. He's going to take it if he has that opportunity. So why couldn't the player have that same shot?
What's the difference then? They didn't recruit you, Baylor, out of high school. Coach Rule was here, and they had Phil Snow, and they're really good at what they do. And they had a great defense in 2019 compared to what they're doing now with Dave Aranda, Ron Roberts, Dennis Johnson, and company.
Coach Bell loved me out of high school. He was on their staff with the old staff. And he just couldn't get the higher-ups beyond him, couldn't get the trigger pulled. They said I was too short. I didn't fit their defense. And first thing Coach Aranda told me was, I don't care about how tall you are. I see how you play. I love the way you play. And I was like, see, I needed a coach like that out of high school to think that way of me. And we clicked from there, and Coach DJ said, height doesn't matter. We're worried about how well you can play and what can you contribute to us and how we can help you develop as a player. And it just worked.
Jackson, one of the things I remember most about you in high school was the fact that your work ethic, and if you lost in a play, which wasn't often, you took it very personally. Like you got beat, you weren't going to let that stand, and it wasn't. You just motored that through. I'm surprised that it took college coaches that long to see that.
Yeah, it was a shock to me too because I'm like, man, I'm dominating people week in, week out. You can't win every battle. That's part of football. You're not going to win everyone, but if I'm winning 9 out of 10, that's pretty hard to beat. But I was like, hey, it's what God put me in. I'm gonna take it and run with it. And Tulsa worked out well for me. I put me in this position now.
What was it like playing with Phil Montgomery the last 4 years?
It was great. A lot of ups and downs season-wise. We didn't start off my first 2 years that great. Had some very bad seasons. Junior year, we did a real good run. I think we lost by a combined 13 total points on the year, which is crazy. This past season was great too. We had some games where we only allowed 1 conversion on third down out of 17 tries, which is unheard of. So it's been a blast playing under him, playing under Coach G and Coach Ash, and then some of the old coaches. It was a blast, but now it's time for me to find somewhere where I can develop further and get to a better place.
Did you happen to watch the Big 12 championship game?
Oh, most definitely.
So those goal line stands, was that a little bit appealing to you, seeing what they were doing on defense?
Oh, definitely. They got the stop with, like half an inch?
Yeah. Literally, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You mentioned last night when you and I spoke for a little bit about Apu. And, I mean, what a character, but what a hell of a football player, and that how you guys can complement each other. He's on his way back, obviously, for the spring semester. Have you had any conversations with him? And what are your thoughts about Siaka Ika?
I have not met him or spoke to him yet. I'm sure we will in the next few days. I like the way he plays. I like his size. I'm used to playing with dudes that big. The dude I had to the right of me at Tulsa that played nose was 6'4", 375. So – yeah, I'm used to playing with big guys.
6'4", 375.
Yeah, his name was Big Cat.
Yeah, it could be whatever the hell he wants his name to be, right? So you also are so active and quick. You could be moved up and down that defensive line. What did the coaching staff at Baylor tell you about that?
Right now they said I really don't need to play nose if I can play nose, and they're going to try me at different things, but primarily at their 3 technique defensive end, so to say. It's a little different in their front because it's a 3-4, 4-3 blended together kind of. So it'll be interesting to see what I can do there.
Do you still, and I'm sure you do, but you were one of the high school players I saw that really enjoyed practice. You liked it. I mean, I know that, I've told this story 100 times on the air, but there was one day I was there to do the interview, and it might have been you, but I was there to do the interview, and you were told by the coaches, listen, we want you to harass our center until he can get his snaps right. And you did it with gusto. You just enjoyed those things because you knew it was going to make everybody better.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. I mean, going into year 5 and going into year 4, practice is a little tiring. You're like, all right, I've been doing this a long time, but you still got to put a little spark into it, make the offense mad, do something, get under the skin, talk a little trash. I'm still the same player.
What's it like to, I know coming out of Midway, you probably dreamed of bigger offers than that, but what's it like now to know, like, hey, I'm going to be in the Big 12? You could have played in the SEC. You could have played wherever the hell you wanted to. But, just how excited are you for that opportunity to be on, quote-unquote, a bigger stage?
Yeah, I'm very excited. I played some big schools like last year, played Ohio State. I played Texas, played Oklahoma State 3 years. But now to play a week in and week out is going to be pretty crazy. Like you said, I had a lot of opportunities to go anywhere. One of my first calls was Oregon, which was, in my mind, I was like, wow. Not many people get that call. And to be able to turn schools like that down was kind of amazing to me also.
Is it just kind of life confirming in a way? Because you always knew you were better than you were given credit for. And like you kind of said earlier, now you're the one telling people no rather than, hey, look at me, over here. But how satisfying is that in a way, even though there's still work to do to kind of prove people wrong but prove yourself right?
It's very satisfying knowing that my hard work paid off, and now there's no denying it. They can't turn on the film and be like, okay, that kid can't play at the high level. I do it week in and week out, and I'm one of the top defenders in the country at my position. You
did mention that you were going to commit at 7 o'clock Sunday night, and you did. And you called Sean Bell, and you mentioned he was in a deer stand or blind, and you messed with him a little bit. You ruined his deer hunt trip. That's fine. He kind of enjoyed that.
I don't think he capped it off.
Yeah, yeah. He didn't. Whether he shot something or not,
there's still deer.
What is? There always will be that. There aren't many Jackson players, if any. But what was his actual reaction? What was the conversation like?
When I called him, he was whispering. I'm like, "What are you whispering for? I'm calling you to talk to you about serious. I told you I was going to call you earlier." And he was like, "Well, I'm in a deer stand. Blah blah blah." I was like, "Well, this might ruin that trip. And I was like, I got some bad news for you. I'm staying home. And he was like, what? And then he just, oh, yeah, forget this deer trip. We're celebrating tonight.
Shut it down.
Yeah, he shut it down pretty quick.
What's been the reaction from everyone that knows you locally, that's followed you? We've stayed in touch with you at your time at Tulsa, had you on a few times. It was fantastic. What's it been like locally?
Oh, it's been great. It's been great. The city has shown me a lot of love. I've signed a few autographs. I've talked to a lot of kids. I've talked to a lot of people just telling me they're grateful I'm home and they can't wait to come watch me play at Baylor.
How excited is your mom that she doesn't have to make that 6-7 hour drive to Tulsa?
Oh, when I told her, she didn't even let me get the I'm staying part out before she started boo-hooing in the store. And I was like, she was pretty happy about that.
What's that like, man? You're going to play 10 miles from where you played your high school ball 4 years ago. I mean, it's crazy how life kind of comes full circle sometimes. And I can't imagine you ever would have thought like, oh, yeah, one day I'm going to be in a Baylor uniform playing down the road, right?
I mean, it's crazy. Like, my plans after college and after I made it to the NFL, made a little money, I was going to move back here. And just because all my roots here, all my family's here, and now I get the chance to play here for my last season and play in front of all my friends and family. It's pretty crazy.
Okay, we're trying to figure out, how many times have you played in McLean before?
I think 3.
South Lake Carroll
Mansfield.
and Tyler Lee. Were you in that game when they played Tyler Lee?
I was not. I was a freshman, and then
They beat the hell out of him.
and Coach Gamble did not move me up to varsity.
And you've never forgiven him. And I know that if you've been I know you were in touch with Coach Hume. Shane Anderson, now the head coach at Midway, loves your game. Obviously, with Coach Gamble, have you talked to some of them?
Oh, they all congratulated me. Coach Hume sent me a text last night. Coach Gamble usually congratulates me or wishes me good luck before games. And I talk to Coach Anderson every time I'm at the high school, and that's where I go work out when I come home. But now I'm staying home, so it's a little different.
Where's that big old piece of number 90 around your neck? TJ Franklin is on the roster. You know him from Temple when you guys used to butt heads. He's number 90. So I mean, numbers don't matter. It's what you do. Any decision on what you might wear? What number?
I'm trying to talk to him about letting me have 90, but I understand the man has been playing in it. I'm never going to step on a man's toes about a number. So I told Coach Bell if I can get it, I want to switch to 0 if I can't get 90.
Oh,
Okay.
And that's part of earning it, that single-digit thing, huh? I don't think that's going to be a problem.
Yes, sir.
To be a part of this football team with what you've seen since you left, to watch them rebuild it under Coach Rule and then do it again under Dave Aranda, how much of that did you pay attention to what they've done now twice? And the way they do it with defense.
It just shows how resilient they are. Like, they just keep coming back. I know just watching it from afar, because it's a hometown team, watching them go, I don't know how many games they won the first year under Matt Rule, and then they came back that following year.
No one won the first year.
And that following year, they had a breakout season. I was like, oh, wow. And then first year under Coach Aranda, with all the COVID and stuff, they only won 2 or 3 games. Yeah. And now this past season, winning 12, it shows that they bought into the program, bought into the coach, and it paid off.
What's it like talking to Dave Aranda?
He's a very different individual. He's a very cool individual, one of the calmest coaches I've ever met. I don't even think he can yell. I don't think he has the ability to yell. And he's just a very chill, very strict. He's strict on himself, and he's a different dude. I love him.
You know, when we first he had the press conference last year, he was hoarse, and I thought, oh, well, it's – all Coach Gamble, for one, was hoarse
because he screamed all the time
after football season for about a month because his vocal cords were rebuilding back up. So I just thought, oh, Aranda must be one of these like really intense yeller type guys. And then 3 months after that, I was like, no, he just has a cold.
My favorite part was watching that game, the final game, the Sugar Bowl, and seeing him getting the water poured on him, and he didn't even make a face. He just kept straight, and I was like, you know how intense of a man you got to do that? Yeah. I make faces getting in the cold tub. So
He clenched both of his fists and took that cold bath. And never, you're right, the emotions on his face.
Walking. He didn't just dodge it.
It's almost like he's got like some kind of I don't know what it is. When you talk with him, how much of it was football? You mentioned what DJ said and what he said. Don't care, I'll tell you. How much was football? How much was about Jackson Player, the person?
A lot more was about the person. He said the football aspect is obviously important, but he wants to build good people. He wants to have good humans in his program. And I think that's very important, especially when you're playing football. If you're surrounded by a bunch of good humans, you're going to have a pretty good team.
Any connections with this current? I'm trying to think of who all's on the roster right now. It's all crazy, but any buddies on the team currently, or guys that you talk to, keep up with?
Not really. Not on this news team. I know there was a few dudes from Temple that I played against, but they graduated or whatnot. So not really. Just the people I met on my official, and still getting to know everybody.
For those who have never seen you play in the Sikkim365.com, the premium section, there's threads of highlights and breaking you down and all that. Who did Baylor just get to add to their defensive front line?
I think the most relentless, most passionate D lineman in the country. I feel like I play with a lot of passion. I play with a chip on my shoulder. And if you turn on the tape, it speaks for itself, I like to say. I think I put on very good tape, and that's against – even UC Davis all the way down to your Ohio State. So,
was that? I got sorry to interrupt here. Was that cool playing Ohio State? Was that like? Did you ever have a moment afterwards? Maybe you're like, man, we just played Ohio State. Like that's awesome. And I know you played some other big schools too. But I mean, just a kid growing up, I think about playing in the horseshoe and things like that. I mean, what was that experience like for you?
Never in my life did I think I would be playing in the horseshoe. I thought about it 2 weeks before the game. I thought about it during the game. Mid-play, I'm looking up at these dudes like, oh, it's Ohio State. It's a little different. And then just playing there in the atmosphere and that being a close game for a little bit. The ending score didn't look good, but if you watch the whole fourth quarter, they were up 7 points with 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Not many people could say they did that to Ohio State.
That is that's a coliseum. It's like the Roman cathedrals back in those days, how beautiful that stadium is.
And it's loud, but when you hold them to 7, they're up 7, and the game kind of turns in your way, and that thing goes quiet. It's the most beautiful thing in the world.
All right, I know you need to go get some rest, man. You've had a long couple of 2 or 3 weeks, as you mentioned. It's stressful. It's a good thing as well. For you to get all the way back down here after you got your physical, to drive back through traffic and battering ram of I-35 to come see us, it means a lot to us for you to be in studio. We're thrilled you're back and can't wait to cover you this upcoming season. Enjoy the rest of the evening, and we'll see you at practice sometime during the spring.
Yes, sir. I appreciate y'all having me. Thank you.
Jackson Player, Baylor defensive lineman from Midway High School, played 4 great years at Tulsa. In studio, Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine. Look,